is, running it down on these niggas.
Sex, drugs, money, and murder, my nigga. You know how we get it, my nigga. Still be painting them pictures, my nigga. Ripping that raw and fucking your bitches. Sex, drugs, money, and murder. 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 Niggas, they never gon' hurt you. Niggas, they never will hurt you. Sex, drugs, money, and murder. Sex, drugs, money, and murder.
How the traps right, understand how to get that. Ran down on them niggas with a flip back. Knew I never seen another nigga live like that. I was still getting stacks back. Had to fuck around getting them packs back.
Gotti. You know, I really wasn't gonna do a video on this, but I said, you know what, I'm gonna do a video on this anyway. Rick Ross and the Game beefing right now. Now, this all stems from the whole Kendrick versus Drake beef. Remember, Rick Ross did a diss track on, you know, Drake, and y'all know Chuck, the Game, he rocks with Drake. Drake his mans, you know what I'm saying? Now, this is my thing, and I'm gonna be all the way quite frank. I don't have an issue with Rick Ross. I like his music. He make good music. But this is the thing I'm gonna say, and I'm gonna be perfectly honest. Rick Ross, like people say Game clout chases, right? But people don't understand this about Rick Ross. Rick Ross has clout chased his way in hip hop, making imaginary beefs since he came in the game. Now, first imaginary beef, the fake beef he started, the first one was against T.I. You know, in 2006, 2005, 2006, he started dissing T.I., right? Out of nowhere. Then, that didn't work. He quickly squashed it. Then he started dissing Trick Daddy. Now, Trick Daddy's a Miami legend. You know what I'm saying? He tried to violate Trick Daddy on a clout chasing move, right? So it was all to just, you know, make his career bigger. Then when Trick Daddy and them pulled the pictures out on him, the CO pictures, because like when I hear people talk about the CO thing, it's like it's already been exposed. Trick Daddy and them put that out in 2008. That's nothing new. So when 50, the whole 50 beef started, basically because he said that 50 looked at him some type of way, a weird look, and he walked up to him and he felt disappointed, and that's why he started dissing 50. And really, 50 ain't have no beef with him, and he ain't have no beef with 50. You know what I'm saying? And what really saved Rick Ross and the 50 Cent beef was that he had people like The Game, Ja Rule, Fat Joe, because The Game, I remember way back, he was on the radio and he was telling Rick Ross, and he was saying on the radio that he had 50 side over Rick Ross because 50 was killing Rick Ross with the whole Tia situation. So he linked up with Ja, Fat Joe, The Game, and the whole industry. Lil Wayne, Birdman, Khaled, all these dudes was riding for Rick Ross. If you remember, they was all riding for him around that time when he was going to 50 Cent. And then he had the backing of the DJs. So he had guys like Khaled, he had guys like Clue, he had guys like Flex. All the DJs was standing behind Ross. And then he had the co-signer Puff and Diddy. Puff and Jay-Z, I mean. And that's why, you know, 50 and, you know, Puff issues stem from out of him backing Rick Ross, right? And if you notice, as time went by, the way he promoted his albums was through his beefs. You know, like I said, in 06, it was T.I. In 08, it was Trick Daddy. 09, 010, and till his day, it's 50 Cent. You know, and then Young Jeezy, you know, he went and was taking big the BMF thing and started that beef with Jeezy, hating on Jeezy. You know what I'm saying? And Jeezy was the one that was the first one to really like help dude. You know what I'm saying? On a major level. You know what I'm saying? Like Ross made his. Don't get me wrong, he made his appearance on Trina record, but like the first time you really seen Rick Ross and you heard him was on the Boys in the Hood album, right? Now, like I said, this Game and Rick Ross beef, I got game on this. Why I got game? Because I feel like Rick Ross, in my opinion, and this is the God's honest truth, is that Rick Ross, in my opinion, jumped in that Drake beef with Kendrick out of nowhere. A lot of people gotta understand this, man. Rick Ross, don't get me wrong, he had his career, he had a, you know what I'm saying, but on a hip hop level, if it wasn't for the artists that he had, the co-sign backing and the DJ backing that he had, I really don't think Rick Ross would have, you know, be at the level he is in hip hop. You know, it was the production really saved Rick Ross. The production. You know, him having them soulful, working with producers like Justice League, you know, Bink the Humble Monster, Just Blaze, you know, and many other producers. But just working with those producers right there, you know what I'm saying? And they basically crafted his style and made him great. This is why people was co-signing Rick Ross. But if he didn't have those co-signs and he didn't have those producers and he didn't have the sound that he had and he didn't have the certain artists that he jumped on records with, I really don't think Ross would have had been in the game as long as he been. You know, I feel as an artist, bro, Rick Ross just got lucky with his production. With his production. You know, and I really think that a lot of people should understand that's what carried him in hip hop was the production. The productions, the cosigns of certain people is what carried him a long way in hip hop. You know, without these people carrying, without the producers carrying him and the cosigns that he had and the artists that he did collaborations, because if you really look at it, Ross, you know, biggest joints was collaborations. And a lot of people don't understand that when it comes to artists like The Game, right? And I tell people like The Game, if you really look at The Game resume, documentary, Doctor's Advocate, you know, what I respect about The Game, right? After he, you know, when 50 fell out, right? When he did Doctor's Advocate, he did that on his own, right? And the album went #1 just like documentary. It was a success, you know, because they thought he wasn't going to do as well as he did on, you know, documentary. They thought it was over for him because he left the Dr. Dre machine and he didn't have the 50 Cent cosign. So when he was able to sell the amount of units that he sold, go #1 and have absolutely the best production on that album. And I think that, in my opinion, Doctor's Advocate is a slept-on album. A lot of people don't understand how slept on and how great that album was. That was a damn good album. One of my favorites. You know, that and documentary is two of my favorite albums by The Game. You know what I'm saying? And the resurgence of the West Coast, The Game brought it back. Say what you want to say about the dude. He brought the West Coast back. He carried the West on his back. He carried the West on his back. A lot of artists can't say they did that. He actually did that. He carried that whole West Coast on his back, literally. And with him carrying the West Coast, he took it to higher heights. You know what I'm saying? And he had a success, like I said, Doctor's Advocate, documentary, 2 successful projects. I think Game was 2-2. You know what I'm saying? LAX was great. It was solid. But LAX wasn't as, like, impactful as Doctor's documentary and Doctor's Advocate. You know what I'm saying? I think those was like his best body of work ever, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong. I like LAX. I think LAX is a good album. I think LAX, matter of fact, I could put LAX in there because LAX was a solid project. It just didn't do as well as Doctor's Advocate and documentary, but LAX was a solid project because if you really look at LAX, you had everybody on there, man. And we talking about, like, that was a solid project, like documentary and Doctor's Advocate. I think those are like the in my opinion, the 3 albums that basically was like a part of that trilogy. Because I think that was like the trilogy, you know? That was like the trilogy, you know? But I think LAX was like the album like where he was like, I wouldn't say falling off, but I'll say he was not as like, how you say, hungry as he was on them 2 albums, like documentary and Doctor's Advocate, which those 2 albums was like straight out the gate. He was going crazy on them 2 albums. You know, those 2 projects are my favorite projects by the Game. You know, and I still play them to this day. So I'll definitely say that those 2 albums, legendary, fire. But when it comes to like I said, when it comes to this Game and Raw's beef, you know, I'm just keeping it real with you. You know, Raw's basically bit more than he could chew. Now, Drake and Game got a good rapport, good relationship. That's his guy. So he's riding for his guy. Him and Drake collaborated and all that together. And Drake always shouts him out on his records. And he riding for his mans. And he riding for his mans because basically, you know, Rick Ross jumped out there on Drake. And Rick Ross was out of pocket because it wasn't his business to jump even in that beef. And not only that, Drake gave that nigga his biggest records. You know, without a Drake, a lot of that Rick Ross shit would have never went anywhere, bro. You know, let's just keep it real. Rick Ross needed a Drake. He needed those cosigns from them big dogs. You know, because when 50 was on his head and was on his heels, man, it was these dudes like Birdman and all these dudes that basically was supporting Ross. You know what I'm saying? Was helping Ross. Because if he didn't have the unity and the support that he had, a lot of times, I really do believe that he would have not survived that 50 Cent battle. Because the thing with what happened with 50 and Ja didn't have the support like Ross had. So that's the thing that people don't understand. You know, Ross had a whole lot of support. And Drake gave him some big records, man. You know, Drake gave him some big records. And we talking about Paris Morton was Drake record. Aston Martin. That was a Drake record. You know, and that later became, you know, really, you know, Rick Ross record. But that was a Drake record all through and through. You know what I'm saying? You know, you could look up the reference, Paris Morton Music. You know what I'm saying? So he really did help out Rick Ross a lot with a lot of those big songs. You know what I'm saying? And we talking about records like Free Spirit and Lord Knows and, you know, so much records that they did together. You know what I'm saying? And we talking about So when Ross went at him, that was a feeling that he had already. That's why I'm riding with Drake on this battle, because I feel like Drake is the underdog, and I feel like Game is the only one that's really riding with Drake, because everybody else is going at Drake ass. So I feel like Game was the one that he was like, nah, I'm riding with the nigga Drake. He riding with him. You know, he riding with him. You know. And you know, Rick Ross, he feel the way he feel, you know, and he didn't think Game was gonna come out. So if Ross don't come out with a diss track, and he did a diss track on Drake, that just show you that he not willing to compete. You know what I'm saying? If you call yourself a lyricist, you call yourself a rapper, compete. You know what I'm saying? Because this nigga did diss tracks on 50, and 50 never said nothing about the nigga. You know what I'm saying? So when 50 did what he did, you know, everybody said 50 was wrong, but the nigga went at 50 first. You know? So it was a lot of clout chasing on Ross' part. You know, and I'm just being honest with that. So it is what it is, man. It's your boy Bullets Gotti. Salute.